words of my mouth, the meditations of my heart, the stewardship of these hands be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. I will open up with this since it's been a while. Life is more than this, so much more than that. Life is more than this, so much more than that. Life is more than this, so much more than that. Life is so much, so much, so much more. Your life is more than this, so much more than that. Your life is more than this, so much more than that. Your life is more than this, so much more than that. Your life is so much, so much, so much more. Our lives are more than this, so much more than that. So much more than this, so much more than that. Our lives are more than this, so much more than that. Our lives are so much, so much, so much more. Welcome aboard. And we're back. Welcome back to Hype Central. T and I, thank you for stopping by. I will do I remember. It has been a while. I recall. In the mid-90s, still driving the truck over the road. And I think that week we had been going pretty strong. And at this time, I'm by myself. So it was a Sunday, like it is today while we're recording. And I decided I wanted to go to an assembly somewhere, someone's church. So I think the night before I had done some homework to check to see who was in the area. I found myself in Joplin at the time, Joplin, Missouri. So I picked out this spot, and I had already called a cab in advance, so the cab took me there that following morning at the time I was told. So when I got to the place, the doors were locked. No one was there, not a car in sight. So I probably waited, I don't know, I want to say roughly 30 to 40 minutes, and then a car pulled up. Of course, I've never been there before, and I didn't want to assume who the person was pulling up. So after we introduced ourselves, I found out it was the pastor of that place. So he welcomed me, and we went in. And as I lead into what I'm going to go into, we went through the standard Christian liturgy. We opened up with prayer. We had scripture. And we pretty much testified to one another. I kept looking over my shoulders. So, this big place, I'm still waiting for the doors to swing open, somebody to come in. At that time, I think he proceeded over to the organ or piano. Fake memory, but he sat down and began to play. I was like, okay, all right, so I'm there to get something, so I get along with him, and he plays, we sing, I sing, and then for those that don't know, in the Christian church, sometimes they offer you the opportunity to testify, so I testified or spoke of God's goodness, and he did the same in the form of bringing a message. And those that saw my earlier videos during that period of time, because it wasn't very long that this had happened, when I had the experience with the arrow leading me to the front door of the meeting that I was going to go into. Not just leading me to the door. When I sat back in the seat of the car and wondered where this arrow was, it was pointing directly down on top of the building I was going into, centered perfectly in the door I was walking in. So I talked about some of those things with this pastor that I had met for the first time, and he went on to talk about some things to do with, I want to say, the Indians and some of their symbols and different things along the time. But of course, at that time, I didn't know that there's Indian in our blood as well. I'll just say it that way, and I'll stop there. But anyway, so I listened to him and we talked, and we might have been there hour and a half, I would say. And would you know it? No one else walked in the door. We had a complete service. But I'm gonna move on. But after the service, again, he let me know that he would take me back to the truck at the truck yard. But he invited me to his home, so I went to his house. When we got to this house, beautiful home, and he talked about some things about that. Talked about there was a time that on his side of the tracks, it was only the cosmopolitans, those that aren't me. And on the other side of the tracks, it was people like himself. I'm trying to be cognizant of where I am and being in front of the camera. But y'all know, ain't no sense in trying to clean it up. One side of the tracks, other side of the tracks. So anyway, after he talked about that, I went into the house, and lo and behold, he has a family. So when I walked in the door, I think I saw the wife immediately. She greeted me at the door. She introduced herself, and then she had us to come in and sat down. It wasn't a high-end home, but it was like she sat us down in the parlor, I guess, or whatever. So we sat down, and he and I continued to commune, and then I saw one child, and then I saw another child. I was like, oh, okay. And the smell of food was going on. So after a little bit, probably a half hour, we were called into the dining room. Again, just him and I. People, I kid you not. So when I go into the dining room and we sat down, I'm like, oh. So we sat down at the table. Oh, one thing I skipped over, because this, again, is an old memory, is when we were leaving his church, and it was his church, as we were going around the corner to position, I guess, the journey to the house we are now in, there was another church just across the way, and there was no parking room left. It was so many cars there. I was like, did the people that were intended to come to his place go there? Anyway, I digress. So back to the dining room, and he and I are sitting down, and she served us just like we were in a restaurant. She came in, she said, no title, no nothing. I'm just somebody who driving trucks at the time, looked for a place to go to, but I'm sat down in the dining room with this pastor in communion. They're feeding me, and I look in the kitchen. That's where the wife and the children are eating, in the kitchen. So after that, now we go out onto the porch. He talks a little bit more about himself. And I saw pictures on the wall, and I want to say he was pictured along with, I want to say President Clinton. And I don't know if it was during Clinton's campaign, or I don't know if he was the president at the time, but I did notice the pictures on the wall with he and the president. So, interesting experience. And then he took me to the truck, and that was it. But I never forgot that. But that leads me to this. So, I wrote down a few things, observations. I was telling my wife that I don't know if this is going to be a class, a lesson, but I'm just going to give you what I got as I saw it, as I was given, and hopefully you can take away something that you heard to use for yourself or on your life's journey. So the very top line that I have is based on, and this is what made me think about that experience I had at this pastor's house, just he and I, and at this pastor's church, just him and I. But anyway, it starts off by saying Christian liturgy, that is the ritual, the worship, and the service can be described by our motivations in the face of our fiercest distractors. As I was writing this, I had in mind, about ourselves, we, Hype Central, how we came to be. Basically, it's a foothold. It's a hub for those that, probably think themselves strange or different or unique. And for me, I felt a calm because it made me realize that we're not by ourselves because of our gifts and because of our experiences and because of our capabilities. And the way it was given to me, and I'm only going to be limited with the words I say now, but the way it was given to me, a hub, I thought was very interesting because that's what I was told it is evolving to be that. Somebody's like, how dare you, the audacity. I'm telling you what I was given. And as T and I talked about it, I was like, in my mind, it appears that the specializing of the specific graces, gifts, or abilities isn't going to be mine directly, but it's going to be those that we're working with, collaborating with. Certain ones are going to be specialized in different fields, and it appears from the outside looking in that I'll be able to help in navigating who goes where or who does what to accomplish the task of who is God. Now let me back up, because that was not my intent to get in heavy. The structure is laid. The platform is there. There's some things yet coming into play that we haven't seen. But bear with me in this folly. I believe that those in the spirit realm has gotten a preview of what's coming. And they're creating havoc. They're trying to get in the way. Let me go on. Some of our fiercest, I've got detractors or critics, enemies, foes, who desire our complete demise, would rather not see a Hype Central, would rather not see us, would rather not see this platform, and doing all that they can to bring closure. And it appears, because this is what I wrote down next, though those who hate we the chosen with the greatest passion appear to be advancing in their efforts to slow things down, to stop, to be the hiccup, to be the stumbling block, I have here, the fact remains, should they continue on this determined course without heeding the warnings of woe and destruction, will continue to just fatten for the great and notable day of judgment that's coming towards them. I started off by talking about in the spirit realm. But what the spirit realm does is they use people. They find a host to operate in and to operate through, to do their bidding. And these people's the reason why I'm bringing it into 3D. These people that are doing the bidding of the enemy in the unseen realm, I believe in my heart that they have gotten warnings of woe and destruction over and over again, and some of them are not taking heed. But I'm telling you on this Sunday, whatever the date is, December the 11th, that the day of judgment is coming. Karma. I can't say it like peppermint. But karma is coming. I'm moving for that. And I'm going to calm myself down because there are many pages here. I'm going to tell you now, if y'all want to get something to drink, go get you some coffee, because it's been a little bit, and I'm pretty much laying a foundation on behalf of Hype Central about where we're headed next, and we'll go from there. The next line I have is gratitude. I wrote down gratitude or being grateful. The transition from gratitude to love will take place if we begin to have greater appreciation for what we do have versus what we do not have. For me, after looking into gratitude, one of the bishoprics for me, the very first one is I am that I am forever grateful. To be grateful is to take note of sometimes the little things, just the little things. I told my wife on yesterday she made some breasts, some stuffed breasts. I didn't want to ask all that is in there because I get particular when I know all the ingredients. Don't tell me all of that, but I knew it was spinach in there, and it tastes pretty good. But here, what I'm getting at is, no matter what's going on in your life right now, you may not be where you want to be yet. But if we take the time to just be thankful for what is, even as it is, right where you are, and if you do it enough, you begin to recognize that you are wealthy. You are more wealthy than you could have imagined. But that little bit. And if I dare us to do that, and I believe the universe will begin to ebb out more. Oh, you thankful for that quarter? Ha! You thankful for the quarter? Let me give you this dollar and see how you going to act with that. And let me give you this bill, meaning $100 bill. Let's see how you going to, respond to that. And then so on and so forth. But being thankful where we are. For me, I have to constantly remind myself it's first natural, then spiritual. And the reason why I say that is the next line I have. We can begin by being grateful for one another. For you. For she. For the many around the world. To be grateful for them. Our families. The stranger. And above all of that, having respect as well. As a foundation. They may not look like you. They may not even speak like you. The education might not be what yours is. Their economic level may not be what yours is. And yet, if you two look in the mirror, you and whoever look in the mirror, you're human. You're a human being. Let us learn to be grateful. Somebody's probably saying, how dare you? But I put in parentheses right here, me first. Every time I sit in front of this mic, before I give whatever I got, whether you know it or not, it came to me first. I had to look in the mirror. I had to ruminate over the words first. And then I come forth and give it to you. I'm moving on. Continuing with observations. I've got down here observation of inclusion. To whom do you subscribe? Some people may say ascribe. But to whom do you subscribe? There are times of assembly, just like I talked about, going to that, church, and we went through the basically invocation. We went through what Christians do as far as liturgy, as far as beginning the service, going through the service, ending the service, and then if I be not mistaken, they call it the Eucharist, or those that takes the Lord's Supper. There are different rituals and things that take place under the Christian liturgy. But to whom do you subscribe? Even during these times, such as invocations, I find that it is prudent and honorable to consider at sessions, at settings, public usually, that during invocations it is allowed, especially if those don't normally pray or pray openly, that there's moments of silence to give them the opportunity under whatever discipline they follow to acknowledge that discipline. That's usually not a time, if you're of the Christian faith or if you're Buddhist, if you're whatever, to try to indoctrinate someone. No. Silence. It's a form of respect. It's prudent. It's honorable. And then when it's over, you move on. No one is offended. Everyone was allowed to stand in their discipline. I'm moving on. I wrote down next. I'm going to be jumping along. I wrote down next. Okay, I hear you. But for me, there is no discipline. I don't follow any specific discipline. There's no religion that I stand under. And I got 3 different types listed. The first one is the type, I can almost hear my dad. I can hear my dad. That hogwash. Some malarkey. Folklore, myths. Or maybe you're the type, I mentioned, Indian in our blood. And I remember, months ago, I didn't just do it because of this message. And I looked up indigenous people, and I went to the Native Americans because, they told me exactly what tribe our lineage came from. I got that. I understand that. I just want to get into it on camera. But one of the things I find that certain truths are presented depending on what culture you're from orally. There's not necessarily a book. It's verbal. And they tell, you remember some of the TV programs and you got, maybe one of the older teachers, and they're sitting down and they're communing with those that are gathered about, and they begin to tell stories about their past. So some of you may follow that. Those are 2 different that I just talked about. Some that call different disciplines malarkey, hogwash, just myths, just folklore. Then you got those that, they won't get into all of that. Some of us came under colonization anyway. And they were dependent upon the stories that came down their family line. So they lead that as their discipline. And then you have those, here's a third one, then you have those that for themselves, they don't follow a necessary discipline. They don't follow a necessary religious belief. But they're all for setting affirmations for themselves, following certain idioms. They're activated by notable truths, sagacious and pithy sayings, poems, even songs. And this is what I wrote down. I had to do a double take myself. Some even take scenes from movies because they want to present themselves a certain way. It's different, but I get it. To bring clarity to their own character, because they want to be represented a certain way to the observer. All of us are being watched. Even when you think you're not being watched, you're being watched. Have you, as a light worker, something just popped in my head. Every now and then I go to a store, and it seems like, and it's not customer service, sometimes it's just a regular cashier. You walk in the door, and it seems like they straighten up all of a sudden. I don't wear suits. You see this is my average garb. This black shirt and these jeans. And I only started wearing jeans in the last 2 years because I mainly wore khakis. But anyway, you go into the store, and it seems like they stop what they're doing, and they give you full attention. What's that? Any other light workers experience that? Any other Christians experience that? What is it about you that draws the attention of people like that? Just the other day, a few days ago, we ordered some take-in instead of take-out. and the driver, whatever the company was, she came up and she was handing me the food. Some ribs, y'all. Woo! Talk about me later. But anyway, she was handing me the food, and my focus was on the bag she was giving me. She was handing it up, but as she was handing it up, she like held it, and she stared at me. I'm like, I'm about to feel uncomfortable. Is she trying to make a point? Because I'm just focusing on the food? Or for whatever reason, what? I even had on my night garbs then, didn't even have glasses on, but I had shorts on and my night shirt on, so it wasn't that. But what I'm getting at is you're watched, whoever you are, wherever you are, at all times. And it behooves you to know that. I'm moving on. And then there are others. They don't follow a discipline. They don't follow some of the things that I named, but they might follow the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. For the Christian, mark the perfect man, and behold the upright. For the end of that man is peace. For others, follow after the light. Positivity, justice, love. And then for the Christian again, as much as lieth in you, to live peaceably with all people. And then I have down, whatever chosen discipline or not, because that's the point. Some follow a path of structured religion, structured discipline, and then there are those that do some of the other things that I just named. If you forgot already, rewind the tape and you'll get it. And then I have whatever chosen discipline. Let me work on discipline. The reason why I'm using discipline, because I'm trying to not dwell so much on spiritual or religious, but for me, all of it is a form of discipline. What do I have down? Discipline, a code of behavior, making positive choices, following after a branch of knowledge, developing quality habits, and pursuing the commitments you've made for yourself, commitments, objectives, and goals. That's what I mean by discipline. Not saying that those that don't have a discipline that they follow are not disciplined. But we're saying that those that don't have a form of a religious or spiritual type path that they follow, but they follow after some of the things that I just named, it's still of benefit. If whatever you follow, whatever category you fall under are the things that I've just named, if that path, I'm going to say right now, replenishes your joy, if that path provides comfort in the time of loss or sorrow, if that path opens the door as a place of rest and safety or refuge, if that path declares for you that the ancients, the ancients are present, front-centered, motivated, and aligned, ever present, at need for you as your archer, as your warrior, as your angel, as your scout, to secure, bear with me this folly. Those of us that got our watchers, our guides, the angels of the Lord encamp around about us. Imagine with me in this folly, wherever you find yourselves, they've scouted out the land wherever your feet are, to the left, to the right, above, all around, securing it just for you. If the path of discipline that you follow does all of these things for you, I don't care if it's movies, songs, notable truths, idioms, whatever. If it does all of this for you and brings an inner peace for you, my next line is, if either of these disciplines are your chosen paths, then I stand in solidarity with you. That's another thing about Hype Central. We're not jealous of anyone. No, no, no. The door is open to all. And you'll understand why before this is finished. Listen. To note, I wrote down. For me, charity and love, starting at gratitude, should be the foundation of whatever path you choose. So everything that I said is great, but don't forget about, actually, I'd like to see gratitude first, which easily transitions into love. And then, since you're able to love now, because some of us, we ain't learned to be grateful. But as you learn and become grateful, turning it to gratitude, now you can love. Some of us, we're not capable. We're not there yet. But once we've got love, we're working on it, still developing. Even her and I still developing. Now you can be charitable. Y'all get me? Did I lose anybody? Gratitude first, which transitions into love. And now once you learn to love or have an idea of what love is all about, now you can be charitable. Moving on. Now that leads me to Petra. Petra. This is going to throw some of y'all for a loop. Petra in the Greek means rock or stone. It's deeper than that, but I'm only stopping there. But the rock I want to talk about right now, I'm not a young buck. I've been around for a little while. And I'm only using this as a segue, as a sample, as a transition point. But the rock I want to talk about right now is the pet rock. The pet rock. That was all the craze in the mid-'70s. You know how long ago that's been? In the 70s. This was all the craze. It was marketed as a live rock. Yes, I said live. Alive, but a live rock. It was encased in its own custom cardboard box. It was complete. It has straw in there, so it can be, presented on. The rock was presented on straw inside this custom little case. And this case had breathing holes. Petra, rock. The idea was that this pet rock did not have to be fed, didn't have to be walked, didn't have to be bathed or groomed, would never disobey you, would never be sick. In a word, the perfect pet. I'm going somewhere with this. Don't leave, y'all. And on top of that, with this rock came a 32-page official training manual. A rock! It says with instructions on how to raise and care for your pet. Yes, I said a rock. Yep, Petra. Rock. I'm going somewhere. Bear with me. In that manual, it showed things like how to teach your rock to sit, how to teach your rock to stay, how to teach your rock how to roll over, of course in parentheses with a little assistance. Woo! Even how to attack. Bear with me in this, Father. I remember growing up in Chicago when them CTA buses was going by. I would pick up a rock and I was so y'all with me? So even teach you how to teach your pet rock how to attack. Pretty insane, huh? That's what I wrote down. Some might say delirious. Some might say ludicrous. Some might say a bit eccentric. But I bring this up only to make a point. It's different, yes. Imagine with me, and bear with me in this folly, because I'm just using it as a point. There is a diverse set of disciplines in the world. Different dogmas, how they do, what they do, in order to fulfill their acceptance of what they're in. A little different, huh? I'm going to go back to the rock. I'll come back to that. But in solidarity for me, bear with me in this folly, since during that period of time the rock was all the craze, in solidarity, what I would do is, well, a hat for Christmas, maybe, for the rock. A scarf for birthday, for the rock. Solidarity I'm talking about. Let me move on before I get in trouble with teeth.
Yes.
What or where, how, I got what or where, how or when a person considers a chosen path, a chosen discipline, a chosen destiny for their lives. It is that person's decision, and theirs alone. It may not be accepted by the societal norm. Again, that's what Hype Central is all about. Some of the people that I see being a part of that, they're not according to what society says is the norm. If it wasn't a part of traditional system, the beliefs of the past, then they threaten to not accept it at all. But behold, I do a new thing. I'm going to stop right there. I'm stopping right there. To note, I wrote down, the opportunity to stand for something or to fall for anything is absolutely, totally up to the individual. I wrote down, by my faith, by my walk in life, the result of discipline or non-discipline, because it depends on what you expect as a mode of operation for your life's journey, I follow will reveal my character. Whatever it is that you follow, it's going to represent you. Whatever tools, whatever methods, whatever you use as a method of observation to help your way through life, it's going to show out through you. It says it's going to reveal your character, your stance, as well as your motivations. I move on. I have another observation. In the early 70s, excuse me, you guys, I didn't bring my face towel this time. In the early 70s, there was a rock band. That rock band was called Aerosmith. They wrote and they produced a song called Walk This Way. And for me, at this time, for this session, pun is intended. Walk this way. It did okay, I wrote down, but not like it did, and not until Run DMC got a hold of it, and I think the proper word is they sampled it. This was in 1986. And then I have, right before I'm about to turn the page, could rock and hip-hop collide and collaborate? Could they coexist? During that period of time, as it was being talked about or presented to either group, both of us had a form of resistance, and they had their own reasons behind it. But when it was done, it says, but that song took off. And not only took off, but it refreshed what had been a now quieted time for the career of the Aerosmith band. In fact, the collaboration of the two groups together caused WTW, Walk This Way, to soar to greater heights than it had before, causing even the album, the newer version, to chart very well, videos included. And if I be not mistaken, I either saw and or read that when they did the video, a part of the video, some of you might be old enough, was they had Aerosmith on one side, they had a wall in the center, and then they had Run DMC on the other side. And somewhere during that video, they crashed down the wall and they came together as one to accomplish that song. Walk This Way. Now, as a sidebar, because when I did the research, yes, I did the research on the song because I wanted to know. Not so excited about how the song itself came into being, but I want to focus on the chorus. Walk this way. Walk this way. Think about everything that I just talked about. Walk this way. Choose your path. Whatever your discipline, walk this way. I wrote down, be aware. Disciplines vary on so many levels. But with charity, love, gratitude, faith, determination, communication, collaboration, commonality, or parallels can be found even in the face of odds. I'm going to read it again. Disciplines varies on so many levels. Again, I was using this as another sample, talking about the group Aerosmith co-joining with Run DMC to create Walk This Way. Originally with Aerosmith, Walk This Way, but then Run DMC, the hip-hop group, got a hold of it, and it brought on whole new life, but because they came together. So, again, an example of a different type of discipline, maybe something you're not accustomed to, not according to societal norms. Because a rock group and a hip-hop group that early on, it wasn't heard of until then, to my knowledge. But disciplines vary on so many levels, but with charity, I'm talking about us being able to work together. But with charity, with love, with gratitude, with faith, with determination, with communication, with collaboration, finding the commonality and parallels. If we can find those even in the face of opposition. Moving on. Whatever side of the spectrum you stand on, know in whom or what you believe. And then just walk therein. For when you know, and your no's know, who or what can challenge it. They can talk all they want. I'm visualizing, I can see Shaft walking down the street and that waka 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 song playing with him. You hear me? Walk in what you know. Let them talk. Let them complain. Let them make up stuff. But you know, and your nose know, and who shall let it? Hear me what I say. Side note, it's a thin line between love and hate. But I got in parentheses, it's a thin line. Various disciplines. But Hype Central, our foundation is to be based on all coming together and working together. Doesn't matter there's something there. Otherwise, God wouldn't have said, do this. I'm moving on. I've got down, it's a thin line to navigate or to strike a balance between two sides or positions. To approach something. I'm going to say something special. It's a thin line. But the song, y'all know, it's a thin line between, some of y'all, it's playing in y'all's heads right now. That wasn't the intent. That wasn't the intent. But let me move on. And then I wrote down a couple of things on the basis of standing on what you know. There's a couple of you readers out there, and you'll know as I begin to say some of these lines, you'll know who you are if you happen across this. I wrote down first, period, point blank. I'm going to cheat a little bit. She don't say it as much, but she used to say it all the time. Period, point blank. She put another card down. You know who you are. Then I got someone that used to say, 10 toes down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, stand on what you know. But don't count out the other disciplines. I'm moving on. Someone used to say, straight, no chasers. There's one now with green eyes. Oops, cheated a little bit. Boom, shakalaka boom. Stand on what you know. That's what you know. Another one says, drop your Uzis down in the comments. And then I just wrote down for the heck of it, exclusive and intuitive indeed. I wrote serendipity indeed, prolific indeed, and hello. Sad, you know what I'm talking about. Hello. So I jest. Let me move on. Another side note. In regards to Aerosmith, the only thing I knew about Aerosmith, the rock band at the time, I probably have to listen to the songs like, oh, that's Aerosmith. Oh, that's Aerosmith. The only one I knew was I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. And I recall that from the movie Armageddon. So that's the only song I knew from Aerosmith at the time. So moving on. So another parallel or another sample of a form of a discipline, and hopefully I can explain it the way I saw it and the way I heard it. Because most of the stuff that I've gotten to this far, I wrote it as I got it. I didn't pursue a path, if you will. As I heard it, I jotted down right here. And then I took it and I transposed it on paper. So the next thing that came to mind while I was writing this session down was, if y'all need to go get a drink, it'll be a little bit more, was this. This is the way it came to me. Well, let me talk about the person first. In the 1800s, there was a poet laureate who wrote The Charge, the Light Brigade. His name was Alfred Lord Tennyson. And these are the words that came to mind as I was writing all this down. Note, it came to me as ours is not the reason why. Have you heard that before? Ours is not the reason why. Ours, but to do or die. I was like, I heard that before. Mind y'all, maybe I can't convey it, but this is what I heard. And when I heard the words, it was in relation to all the various disciplines that I talked about. Let me say a little bit more. It says, not to do or die. I had to look it up, but this is what I heard as I wrote it out. It says, it actually goes, because when I went to the actual poem, they actually showed the scribble of Alfred's writing as he wrote the poem. He wrote it down. So I looked at those words, and the actual words are, theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die, and then he has in small print, so they rode onward. Why do I bring this up now? One's chosen path isn't ours to dissect. Again, some follow a set order of things, set structure of things because it's traditional. Then you got those that follow a non-traditional path. They follow idioms, they follow affirmations, they follow whatever they use to find a way to stand in this life. But I wrote down one's chosen path isn't ours to dissect. Isn't ours to make fit our views. Isn't ours to make the observations be what we want to see. It isn't ours to contest why another's dogmas can never work with or around yours. Ours is not to reason why. Ours is but to do or die. it's probably gone through. I mean, I'm thinking now, if it's 20 people in the room, the first person talking, you say A, B, C, D, E, F, G. By the time it gets to the 20th person, somebody's saying Q, R, L, T. They say the end of the alphabet instead of the beginning. So that poem probably went through a lot of transitions. Is the reason why it came to ours is not to reason why. Or it eventually became an idiom itself. And a long way from what the original poem was. But the only reason I put it down, I hate to pronounce a person's name wrong. I hate to take something out of character. I hate to, y'all with me? So that's why I say I want you to know what the original version was, but what I heard in my ear that day was ours is not to reason why. And it was probably given to me that way because that's what I, at some point or another, heard. Because it did sound familiar when I heard it in my inner ear. So I'm moving on. And then I wrote, but and if, as I observe your life and character, those, whatever path, either a disciplined path or non-disciplined path, as I observe your life and character based on the very disciplines that you choose to follow or not, using songs, music, affirmations, and there's a resonance. Now, this is me on the outside looking at you. I'm admiring you. I'm acknowledging you. Why are you so peaceful? Why are you so happy? Why does your life seem to be on the uptick? What's going on with... This is what I'm talking about. I'm giving you an example of where I'm headed right now. If that discipline brings a certain resonance, I appreciate the energy connection. There's something there. Then I'm ready, to get my freakazoid on. I want to be I want what you got. I'm interested. Let me move on a little bit further. If that discipline or non gives me reasons to dance, then baby, let's dance in that buoy. Let's dance. If that discipline that you follow or path of chosen idioms or affirmations involves a peace pipe, then puff puff goes the dragon. If your chosen path of discipline or non takes me high, then I fly like an eagle. Talk about after the video. Finally, if your chosen path that I'm observing, taking note of, displays the elegance of Tai Chi. Have you ever seen those movies and you got groups of people standing there doing all those moves? If your discipline displays the elegance of Tai Chi, or the rigors involved in yoga, then everybody be kung fu fighting. Talk about or if your life simply emotes peace, serenity, butterflies. The only thing that came to mind at that time was, I think it's Roberta Flack, where is the love? Where is the love? Is that Roberta Flack? Where is the love? All right, I'll move on. I don't want y'all to get bored. Y'all still with me? Y'all still with me? I've got now, imagine with me for a moment, in a collaborative front with others. Those that you've found an appreciation for. Something about them draws you in, but yet their discipline is different from yours. The path that they follow on the outskirts, you're not familiar with. It's a bit different. But imagine with me for a moment in a collaborative front with others. As we connect, depends on who they're following or not following, but as we connect with Spirit, for example, with Source, for example, with Allah, for example, with Ra, for example, with Yahweh, for example. Again, Indian in the blood somewhere. With the Great Spirit, with Ganesh, with Buddha, with divine, and so on and so forth. I don't want to leave anybody out. Like I said, the disciplines out here in the world are diverse. I got a side note. For me, everything that I've given you at this point are my own observations, my own opinions. Charge me. This is me. For me, whatever took place in that tower, many know as Babel. Y'all remember the story of the Tower of Babel? When languages were changed. This is me again. I'm emphasizing it for a reason. I believe many other changes took place that we aren't aware of. This is not something I read. This is my own observation and my own opinion. And one of the things that come to mind as I'm speaking to you right now is this. I believe when they were sent out, see, had they moved when they were told, those that follow the Bible, don't consider it folklore, don't consider it myth, but those that follow the Bible, the people at that time were obstinate. There was a whole world out there. They were told to go out. The Lord God wanted his people to multiply, but they didn't want to leave. They were obstinate. So they were judged. And part of that judgment was the inability to communicate like they once had. The languages were changed. And I said all that to say this. I believe right there, because this was early on. I think this was early, those that follow the Bible, early in Genesis. I believe not only that, I believe the diversity of disciplines began to change right there. I didn't read it, but that's what I feel has taken place. So let me move a little further. I want to make sure I'm on the right page. My observation, my opinion. So how about this? That brings us to this point. So I have down here. So how about, let's just mark the perfect man. Oh, I'm going to stop right there. Perfect man, perfect man. I'm thinking about Green Eyes again, perfectly imperfect. Perfect man, it's subjective. The attributes are admired or appreciated. You're drawn to them through their energy. So how about, let's just mark the perfect man, who you see as perfect. For the end of that man, according to the scriptures, is peace. I wrote down, or what we deem to be perfect. I added, or what we deem to be good, what we deem to be honest, what we deem to be just, what we deem to be pure. Our view of how we believe life should be, we happen to see it in someone else. I'm moving a little bit further. Suggestion. It's not a mandate, but consider this. With everything that I've said up until this point, in a word, keep your negative views, your negative tongues, your negative opinions to yourself. But if any other person's virtues resonate with you, consider this instead. Observe them. What is it about that? What is it about that girl? What is it about that dude? What is it about bruh? What is it about them? Observe. Learn. I wrote down, ask questions. Adopt. Incorporate. Evolve into the best version of yourself. I'm thinking now back to yoga, and I think it's pronounced the mudras and things along that line, or not even that yet. But breathing techniques, I don't know if that's who that's more attributed to, and I don't want to attempt to name. But to learn to breathe properly and what it does for you. And the different moves and all of that.
with Tai Chi and or yoga that seems to be, if you get your stretch on, would be so satisfying. Again, I say, observe them, learn from them, ask questions, adopt, incorporate, evolve into the best version of yourself. Stop putting them down because they're not what you're in. I'm saying carefully and prayerfully, you just might learn something. Again, imagine the strength and reach of such a collective front, combining forces with other disciplines, finding commonality. It might be a thin line, might be, but through collaboration and communication and walking in love and all of that, you might find there's more in common than not. I'm moving on. I'm back to Petra again. Petra. Many probably assumed I would come directly at the question that Jesus asked his disciples. Whom do men say that I am? I bet some of y'all did the research when I first put it out there. I was like, yeah, we know where you're going. No, not actually. It says, whom do men say that I am? But I wrote down here, but it wasn't presented to me that way. What you would think would have been the story. That's not the way it was presented. All the other stuff that I talked about is what the basis or the foundation of why Petra was presented. That's why I started with the pet rock. As comical as it sounds, but that's why I started with the pet rock. But I do attest this one thing about that story, and I believe that's from Matthew, the 16th chapter. I do attest, I do gravitate towards powerfully, as a powerful statement, what Jesus said next. He says, Jesus' response to Peter after declaring that Jesus, you are the Christ, that's in Matthew, the 18th chapter. This is what Jesus went on to say. He said, and I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock will I build my church. Can I stop right there just for a moment? Some of us, we need to get out of the traditional way of thinking what church was when we're growing up. My opinion, not stating it as facts, but I believe in the season that we're in that God is doing a new thing. Let me continue. And upon this rock will I build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I'm going to say that one again. And the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. That I hold near and dear. If you don't get anything else, why I called it Petra, right there for me is the sum total of everything that I said. And the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Let me move along. Over the past few days, I'm winding down. Those who want to get a warm cup, go ahead and get your second cup. I'm almost finished. Over the last few days, had a lot of downloads. One of the downloads included this. A few days ago, I sat among people. We were in a room. And for whatever reason, I was triggered to look up. And I saw coming down the hall at least 4 men. The 4 men had on either jackets or coats. But as they walked, you know how your coat swings? They were unzipped. I could see under their flank or under their arm, however it was attached to their shoulders, I could see on the surface, I'll say, cut-off weapons, like shotguns or or automatic weapons. I can see them just as clear as I saw them approaching in this room with all of these people in there. And then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose in that room. Very bombastic, I wrote down. Explosive, convulsive screams and utterances while under attack. The hollers were desolate and hollow. You ever wait in a hospital room, especially an emergency room, and you're waiting to be seen, and you hear people either moaning, babies crying, somebody coughing. Bear with me in this file. You saying to yourself, please don't come over here. Stay over there. Stay over there. You know, in the waiting room, all those type of sounds. And then you have movies where, you know, where the gunman comes into the room and they're shooting down and people are running and they're hollering and they're screaming. But what I found in the midst of that, because some of you are asking, well, where were you at if you saw all of this? That's the funny part, y'all. All of a sudden, when I looked down in the midst of all of that, right in front of me, there was a shield, like a boar. And whatever shooting was going on, it wasn't penetrating, it wasn't coming through. And as I'm holding up this picture, I'm feeling the tingles all in my head. I remember one of the gunmen was here on my left hand, and as he lifted up the muzzle of his weapon to shoot, he was smiling. He had every intent to do what he was doing. With a grin, he began to unload his bullets right there in front of me. But as I stood there, even in the dream, I wish you could see it as I'm trying to explain it. I could feel the impacts of what was going on. And while I was feeling the impact of what was going on, I was listening to the hollers. The type of hollers that, look, you're going to stay where you are. And unfortunately, you can't help what's going on out there. But it was destruction going on the other side. And then I woke up out of the dream. I saw myself behind a shield, but I could feel the vibrations pressing against the shield. And the blood-curdling cries and pangs, P-A-N-G-S, hurt and disappointment. I talked about earlier, whatever discipline you follow. I believe those of us that are of the light, those of us that walk after rightness, we have a covering. Some of us that know nothing about. They're watching out for you, especially those of you that have an assignment. There's a protection. Many times when I pray, as I begin to go next, because I'm about to use a word, just a little secret for you guys. Many times when I pray, my prayers include the covering whether I'm awake or whether I'm asleep. I declare with my mouth whether I'm awake or whether I'm asleep. Now moving on. That's a good segue for where I want to go to next. How many more pages I got? Let's say 3.5. Almost finished. The segue is this. What I want to address. Again, these are my opinions. These are my observations. And that's secret knowledge. The word secret. Secret knowledge. For me, anything that begins with the word secret should cause you to pause. I'm reminded growing up, there's a guy, his name was Kiki. That's his nickname that keeps me from saying his real name. And every now and then, because I would drive either my grandma's car, she had I think it was a Coupe de Ville, because I don't think it was a four. No, it was a four-door. It was a sedan de Ville Cadillac in the 70s. I used to drive that around. I drive my mom's car sometimes. Needless to say, I didn't have a car. But this guy, he was into everything at the time. Back then, the weed and some of everything. And every now and then he'd catch me walking down the street, and the first thing he would do, psst, psst, that just does something to me. Especially, talk about me later. Please talk about me later, not right now, because I want to get through this. For a guy, for a man, for a male to do that, psst, 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 psst. And then not only that, psst, 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 and then they talking low. Don't whisper to me. Talk. Use your vocal cords. Don't whisper. Otherwise, I'm ready to go the other way. What are you whispering for? I'm moving on. Secret knowledge. For me, anything that begins with the word secret should cause pause, especially in cases to do with your discipline selection. You'll understand in a moment where I'm going. Again, for me, if the information, talking about secret knowledge, if the information and or source is valid, the issue at hand is useful or helpful, then why does it need to be cloaked in secrecy? In the days of Arsenio Hall, why does it need to be cloaked in secrecy? Secret knowledge. I'm moving on. Again, for me, just my thoughts. Why the need for secrecy if the knowledge is positive? If it concerns right motives, and those right motives are pursued, why does it have to be categorized under secret knowledge? Move on. But and if within that secrecy, harm is the threat, either to yourself or others, or whether harm to character, physically, whether implied or actual, especially if that harm is to the advantage of oneself, the giver of that secret information. Let me move on. Pursue, blah, blah, blah. It says, advantage to oneself, let's say to prosper off of another by use of, I wrote the word down, machinations, or by craft, or by schemes. That is a secrecy not worth your investment, not worth your time, not worth your time. You're about to understand right now. Secret knowledge. Secret societies. Secret societies. Secret societies. In my opinion, not something I read, secret societies probably began in good faith. They probably began with honorable intentions. Let's say to resolve current issues that were plaguing them or society, or to focus on rescuing the underdog, if you'll allow me to go there, or the less fortunate, or with the motivations for good and peace and security and abundance. Yes, I speak of secret societies. That's my hope. I didn't read it, but that's my hope. When they started out with good intentions. But then, suddenly and quickly, they began to sour or go south. And in my mind, this is what I saw as the reasons why. The more success that they gained, the more these secret societies thrived in their endeavors, the focus on some of the things I just named became less. And not only that, they began to take chances that they wouldn't have otherwise done. even touches of manipulation began to creep in. Again, for me, secrecy in and of itself, for me, it reeks of. It opens the door of opportunity as a gateway of activity, unfortunately leading to dark and nefarious activities. In my mind, I wrote down backroom dealings come to my mind. These negative activities probably began small, I wrote down, and insignificant at first, but then spun out of control. And I wrote this with a pen. Unfortunately, right under, it spun out of control. I'm about to say something key of this secret society. It spun out of control, unfortunately, right under the watchful eye of those in authority. They saw it happening, but they did nothing. And if you are now a part of all of this secrecy, because it began with a secret, the want or now want to separate from that secret society can become quite difficult due to the agreements or terms you made with them to get in, and also based on any terms of release. I move on. At a minimum, you may find yourself constantly looking over your shoulder because you decide you want to get out now, but you know too much. That's where I'm going. You know too much. But now you're constantly looking over your shoulder due to that conditional release. Worst case, it says, worst case, to what you agreed to, life and limb could also be threatened. And any sense of peace is delusional at best. And then I wrote with a pen, God forbid. Moving on. For me, secret societies should be avoided altogether at all costs. Exactly. See, that's what I wrote down. Secrecy tends to portals of schemes and manipulation. And it also begins a series of begets. Again, I'm thinking about the Bible. You know, you go certain part, I think in the beginning, in Genesis somewhere, it talks about, and so-and-so begot this, and so-and-so begot that, and so-and-so begot that. So, for me, secret society should be avoided at all costs because that secrecy tends to open portals of schemes and manipulation beginning a series of begets. What do I mean by that? Such as, within that organization, whatever that organization might be, in order to maintain their control and position, internal threats beget potential harm. That harm begets infighting. Those infights begets threats, even to extended family members. And that's only the beginning. Depending on the structure of that secret society, threats of kidnapping and loss of life are not out of the realm of possibility. Then what I wrote with a pen, oh God. And I wrote cloak and dagger indeed. The use of secret societies invigorates and salivates the activities of the enemy of our soul. That enemy looks for entry points such as these, secrecy, blink, 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 secrecy, looks for entry points such as these to gain access to specific ones to do his bidding. Please, no hidden truth, no leg up, no inside advancements are worth the potential horrors of joining these sects. In my mind, as I type this, I see recruitment taking place. See, these secret societies, you can't just walk up to the door and say, I want to be a part of it. I remember in one of my videos early on, I talked about as a security officer at that bank, Renee, some man came up to me and he started coyly talking about some organization he was a part of. And I was like, well, tell me more. He said, well, I can't tell you anymore until you join. What? What? Y'all can imagine how that conversation ended. But I see, as I was writing this in my mind, that recruitment is what's being done in order to get people in these societies. You can't simply walk in and apply. Know this for record. This thief comes to kill, to steal, and to destroy. And is this a path of discipline, secret societies, saying you belong to a secret society, you belong to this, you belong to that? Is this a path of discipline you want to pursue? Another way of looking at negative outcomes you may face with member involvement. Best case, you may have to apologize for the errors or mistakes you made being a part of this organization. But progressively, the longer you're with them, you may even experience all types of loss, including the loss of your freedom or prison, physical harm, or, God forbid, the loss of your life or another. I'm finally on the last page. For me, my opinion, not joining these secret societies trumps the grooming secret societies tend to lead to. Again, the operative word is secrecy. Secrecy. I belong to this. I'm trying to keep from naming places because I don't want those places to be offended. But secret societies, they can only tell you this much until you become a member. You have to sign off on this because we do that, and that can't be known. Have I said enough? Y'all with me? So, I close with this. I'm on the last page. My observations and the foraging that I have done to create these opinions and conclusions were reached entirely on my own and by what God gave me in my ear. And hopefully they're received by you in kind as thoughts for your consideration. Take what resonates. Leave the rest. Love and gratitude. Till the next time, thanks for stopping by. Right before you hit that button, this morning, I wrote on my phone, right when I got up out of the bed this morning, I heard these words. Take it, leave it, chuck it. Might mean nothing to you, but this is what I heard. The coat of many colors indeed. That was at 2:27 a.m. this morning. The coat of many colors indeed. I'm going to leave you with that. Such a diversity of disciplines. But Hype Central is a hub, yet evolving. And in my mind, I see the ability to be able to say, someone comes to me, or a group comes to me, and I'm able to say, 10 toes down, I want you to check out so-and-so. They might be able to steer you in the right direction. Go check out a hub. Did I lose anybody? That's what I see in my mind. Those that specialize. Take your love by it. I'm saying that for a reason, because somebody might hear that. But that's what I see in my mind. Certain specialties won't be mine. But to be able to help navigate on behalf of the world, multitudes, the ability to send, to suggest, to recommend. Hype Central is yet evolving. As we pray for you, y'all pray for us. And keep your mouths off of what you don't know. But if there's something you see and you can appreciate, maybe you can adopt it. Make it a part of your own. Make it a part of your own. And I've got one other thing. It's more like a question. A couple of months ago, because I mentioned yoga. A number of months ago now, probably 3 months ago maybe, I remember a dream where I walked into a room. I want to say it was almost like a bar setting. And as I walked in, as I am the observer walking into the room, different ones began to hold up their hands over their head like this. Has anyone else ever seen that? It seems like I came close to it. That's why I mentioned the mudra earlier, because it has to do with, the hands and all of that. And I think one of the symbols I saw was that. But different ones, easily 3 I saw standing side by side, did this. I didn't feel a threat, but it didn't seem like it was positive. But this is what they did as they were standing there as I was walking in the room. Has anybody ever seen that? That's what I'm closing with. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for this session. We thank you for what you've done. We thank you for what you're doing. We thank you for what we gave us, what you gave us, and that I gave it to them. Have your way. Let your will be done and your way be had. And we give you the utmost praise in Jesus'